Hello and welcome back to my Fantasia Toy Box. I'm Professor Toybox. This, of course, is Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey, and it's time for our next episode of Toy Box Tutorials. I'm up here on the tower, just off of the courtyard down there with the stone circle, and the house where we've been working the last few videos is over there. And today, starting today, we're going to be working in this area for the next few weeks, and building some puzzles over here involving some obstacles that Mickey needs to avoid. And the first one we're going to deal with is this ramp coming down the wall over there. And for this ramp, in order to build the obstacle I have in mind, we're going to need the falling object generator. And this is going to be our topic for today's lesson. And you can find this toy in the Creativitoys drawer. And I'm going to drop this right over top of that little hole for right now. And since we're right here, I'm going to put down a temporary button. This isn't the way we're going to activate this toy ultimately, but for today, we'll use that. And I'll come back to that button in a moment. Alright, so as we come over to the falling object generator and we open up the logic menu, you'll notice there are no properties, so there's nothing you can do with this toy without establishing a logic connection. And that's the reason why I dropped this button over here, so we can have a way to do that today. So let me come over to the button, and we'll do a new logic connection when pressed. And we'll come back up to the falling object generator. And as we open the logic menu, what we have here is a list of all of the toys that this falling object generator can generate. So we have different physics balls, we have the hockey puck, we have a mine toy and a boulder and a power sphere. We also have two other options. You can drop a random toy from the list above, and we have this remove all, which will destroy any object that, or remove any object that the falling object generator has put into the toy box. And so for today, I'm going to put down a boulder. We'll start with that for now. And as we come back out over here, we can just kind of demo that a little bit so you can see what that does. So that drops a boulder, and then it comes sort of down the ramp. It gets a little stuck. We can drop another one. Maybe that'll unstuck it. Nope. Looks like it's wanting to move. Yeah, let's try another one. And we just have a log jam, a bottleneck, a log neck. I invented a new word. How about that? Those of you who like to do the word for the day, put that in your video. Alright, so for right now, I'll remove that. Now there's a couple of things with that boulder. It doesn't roll very well, and we're going to address that in another video here. It also isn't lethal, because Mickey can walk up and touch it, and it doesn't hurt him. So that's not ultimately going to help us very much. And so what I want to do instead is drop something that will hurt Mickey. And so instead of the boulder, which is what I was using, which fits nicely on this ramp that I had built a number of episodes ago, I'm going to use this mine toy. And you'll notice this is much bigger than the boulder. And so I'm going to need to reconfigure this area here a little bit to get that to work right. So I'm going to take a little detour here and do that, and we'll come back in a moment to the falling object generator. So I'm going to slide some of these walls back. And I had done all of this work ahead of time and planned all of this out. I actually built this whole interior with all of the puzzles and everything that you've seen so far, plus the ones you haven't seen. And I had it all working, and I was very happy with it, except that I never really bothered to test whether Mickey actually gets hurt by that boulder rolling down the ramp. And I was playing through this the other day and realized he doesn't. So because of that, I have to reconfigure this in order to make room. So let's see, we'll slide this out and we'll drop another one down here to plug the gap. And I just want to pull up my screenshot here and make sure I'm reconfiguring this properly. Okay, so I'm going to come down and remove that piece. And we'll slide this one over like that. And this isn't quite how I had it, but this is the way I'm going to do it. All right, and then we have a gap down here that's just barely wide enough for that mine toy. And so if we come back up to that drawer, this is barely going to fit in there. And actually it doesn't with those ladders there. So I need to slide this back. And I'm going to come back over here to do that. So we'll slide that block out. And we'll slide this one back like that. That makes that wide enough for me. I'm going to put this back here. We'll put another one down over there. And then for this toy, or this block, we're going to move over to this piece here and drop that in there. Oops, nope, that's bumping up. So we'll have to use this one. There we go. And that makes the gap wide enough then that we can get across there. And the can still get across, rather, with those ladders. And yet the boulder, the mine toy, has a way to get through there. So that's good. All right, and then plug the gap underneath this new row of ramps. We'll put that there. We'll put that there. There we go. So now we have a ramp that's wide enough to accommodate the mine toy. Oh, and we're going to need to add another one up here. Okay, so let's come up to the falling object generator. And we'll move this over just a little bit for right now. And I'm going to edit the logic connection to the button so that when it was pressed, instead of the boulder, we're going to drop the mine toy. And then we'll come and push this button and see what happens. It doesn't work all that well. But that one actually rolls down the ramp, so that's good. What's interesting is that toy is going off to the side. It's kind of going at an angle, which is kind of weird. But that's rolling a lot better. And if Mickey touches it, it'll explode. And that's good. So that's giving me the effect that I want. All right. Now, one of the things is this looks kind of unsightly sitting up here. And so if we open the logic menu, you'll notice you can actually connect this to a locator. And so that's what I'm going to do. And to hide this then, we'll put this out of sight down over here. And instead, we'll put a locator up here. And that looks pretty good. Whoops, I didn't mean to move that. I meant to open the logic menu. Okay, so we'll do a new locator connection. And we'll connect it up to that locator. And so now, when we come and push the button, you'll notice, first of all, we don't have that big ugly thing sitting up there. And secondly, we do have the mine toy showing up where I want it to at that locator. So that's good. Now, if you think that looks kind of weird, having that appear just out of nowhere and nothing, You can put a little tower up here to kind of conceal that a little bit. And if we wanted to do that, we could use these pieces here to do that. You can kind of build a little cubby hole here that will kind of hide the fact that that object is appearing in midair. So now when we look at it from down here, that will look a little bit better, perhaps. So that's not too bad. And we can move that locator up a little bit higher so that we don't see it appearing. So we can put it, for example, right there, let's say. And sometimes this is just trial and error, playing around with this. So that looks pretty good. And that one came off the edge of the ramp there almost. You'll notice the way it rolls isn't consistent. Each time you drop it, it moves a little bit differently. So it's a little bit erratic. But there's a way to deal with that. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. Okay, another thing I want to point out over here on the falling object generator, you can connect this supposedly to an actor. I could not get this to work. I tried to connect this to a townsperson and a cast member and a vehicle and anything I could think of, an enemy, and I could not get this to connect. I couldn't connect it to an enemy generator or a friend generator. It just, I'm not sure what this is supposed to do. Maybe it got broken. I thought it would be kind of funny to have falling bowling balls following a townsperson as he walked around or something, like he's jinxed, but I couldn't get that to work. This didn't seem to do anything. So I don't know what that does. There's also a new path connection, so you can connect this to a path, and the falling object generator will follow a path and drop objects as it goes along, so that can be kind of useful too. Now also under here, under the logic connections, we have 3 trigger signals. And so anytime an object does get generated, it'll broadcast this first signal, the generated signal, so you can hook other toys up to that. And then you have these 2, which the names aren't very explanatory. Generated toy defeated, generated object destroyed, and you kind of wonder what's the difference. Well, I did some experimenting. This one gets broadcast if you hook up a button or other toy to the behavior for this to remove all of the generated objects. When you do that, it'll broadcast this generated toy defeated signal. That is the only time this signal seems to be broadcast. This one will be broadcast whenever the boulder or whatever the generated toy is, whenever that's destroyed. So if you put it into a goal and the goal removes the toy, if the mine toy falls down that hole and falls off the edge of the world, this will get broadcast. If it hits a kill switch, or in the case of the mine, when the mine blows up, this signal will be broadcast. So that's the difference I found between these. Again, the names aren't very descriptive of what they are, but that's what happens. So this one gets broadcast if we were to hook up a button, and sometimes it's easier to see it than to say it. But let me just throw a temporary button over here. So if we were to connect this button to do a new logic connection when pressed, come over here and do remove all, and then we go and push that button, that will cause this one to be broadcast. And that, again, is the only thing that causes that signal to be broadcast, from what I could tell. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about the falling object generator. It's a pretty simple toy. You're just dropping a variety of objects with it, And that's what it does, is drop objects. But again, as you play with this, right now I have to push the button to drop one every time. And I'd kind of like to have these coming down the ramp at regular intervals. And I'd also like them to roll a little bit more consistently. That one went right down the middle of the path. This one is kind of going off to the left there. And they're not rolling really fast. And so I'd kind of like to do that. Oh, and by the way, in case you're thinking this gap is too big to jump, that's part of the puzzle. You need to jump and then double jump in order to be able to grab this. Otherwise, Mickey will plummet to his death. But as he's running up the ramp, I want those mine toys to be rolling down the ramp so that it becomes kind of an obstacle, because he's going to need to get up here to do something. So that's the goal. But again, that's everything you need to know about the falling object generator. And we're going to be using this toy a lot in the next couple of episodes, so you'll see more of it. Because again, as it stands right now, it's not really doing what I want. So next time we're going to look at a toy that will help us solve one of the problems, that of dropping these down at regular intervals. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed my video today, or at least found it helpful. I know some of you more experienced builders are probably familiar with a lot of these toys, but it can be helpful to see some examples of how to use them. And I've been encouraged by some of your comments, as you've had an opportunity to see some toys in use that you've never used before. We all have our favorites, I suppose, but there's so much you can do in the toy box besides the things you normally do, and hopefully you're getting a good idea of the possibilities from this series. Anyway, leave a comment to let me know what you think. As a reminder, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking my photo in the lower right corner. And if you haven't visited my blog in a while, be sure to check it out. I've been addressing some common viewer requests and answering questions like how I make my videos and how I display my Disney Infinity collection. But that's all for me today. Have a great weekend.